Hey everybody, this is Neo with another update on the patch 1.30 changes that are on the PTR currently, because it's been 1 week, exactly 1 week, since Blizzard rolled out the patch, and there's quite a few things that we learned since then. There's A, hidden changes that weren't mentioned in the patch notes, there's B, mistakes that I made that I want to correct, and there's C, things that I overestimated or underestimated. So since there's new knowledge and also new things that I discussed with Thorzane, with Starshade, with Remo, I want to give you a little heads up of what's happening, and a big shout out, first of all, to the entire community. I had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with Reddit in the past 4 weeks, but I think the feedback for the patch notes was absolutely insane. So many people showed up with very good changes, with very good ideas, in a very mannered way to express them. So I want to give a shout out to the entire community, also in the Battle.net forums, in our YouTube comments, on Facebook, everywhere. The feedback was really good and really insightful, and yeah, it's very rare, I think, for a community to show how mature they are and how invested they are, and that made me really happy. So before we start here, shout out. But, of course, you want to hear what I have to say, or what we discovered since last Thursday. So, let's see. Let's start with the humans, because I said that the Brilliance Aura nerf was going to be big, and I don't think so anymore. Like, I think it's necessarily nerfed, with the level 1 not being touched. Level 2 decrease is noticeable, but it's not too weak. At level 3 Brilliance Aura we've never seen, basically. And for the super late game, that's, of course, it was overpowered. Now it's not as overpowered anymore. So the effect of the Brilliance Aura nerf, I overestimated it, and I want to correct you here that it's not as bad as some humans might think. That's the start. And the biggest thing that was discovered is concerning the footman, and that changes so much that this will most likely be the majority of the video here. There was kind of a cryptic description for Defend, for the bug fix that they did, because it said, quote, consistently reflects damage from piercing again. So we didn't really know what that means. We knew that Defend was probably too strong, so people found out how it actually works. And in 1.29 and before, it was the case that 25% of the incoming attacks of piercing were reflected with 100% of the damage, so everything got reflected. 25% of the incoming attacks just disappear. They don't end up on the footman, they are not reflected, they're just gone. 50% of the incoming attacks do 50% damage to the footman, so it's reduced damage. Now, in 1.3 on the PTR, what has changed is, still the reflect is the same with 25% of 100% damage. Isn't it 90? I'm not sure. Then the disappearing attacks are gone from the defend equation. So that's a huge nerf already for defend. And 75% of the incoming attacks do 60% damage to the footman. So defend is weaker. That was in the patch notes. The nerf that was in the patch notes. But this, if you calculate it, ends up with a footman taking 80% more damage additionally than before. That is huge. It is a major nerf to defend, which is very likely to be too hard. So this bug fix alone was more nerf than the defend needed, I guess. And there were nerfs on top, so defend could be pretty weak now. Which, of course, makes them weaker against undead, but we'll come up into that, because defend has new features as well. Because not only piercing damage gets reflected and absorbed, spell damage as well, with 10%. They don't get reflected, though. Magic damage reduction is 10% as well, and magic damage is reflected. So if a destroyer attacks the footman, I don't know actually if it's for a destroyer because he's magic immune, but whatever, if magic attacks come into the footman and get reflected, 100% of the damage is coming in, and effects are reflected too. So let's say a worm is attacking a footman, then there's a chance that he gets full damage of the shot back, and he's chilled as well, so he's slowed from his own attack. That's a pretty big buff for the late game, I guess, because in the early game we don't have that. So I think it's good to make footmen more viable in the later stages. There's not too much magic damage of units that are not magic immune, so I think it's chimeras and worms mostly. But with the effect, that might be a little too strong. But most important thing here is, I guess, that this makes the game for undeads and night elves a lot easier. Like, a hell of a lot. Just think about how many times have we seen a human expansion and the undead is trying to break it with footmen, with fiends and statues. And then it works and works and works, but then the human has defend and he just rolls over the fiends and fights them back and then gets the echo advantage. This will be so much easier now for undead that I said in the last video, due to the changes of flying machines, human will be super OP to undead. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think undead will be able to do severe damage to human early on, and this one change, in my opinion, in my theory crafting, is flipping the entire matchup 180 degrees. So that's pretty sick. Speaking of flying machines, I said they are gonna be the most imbalanced unit, and a lot of people will play mass flying machines to just lame. I don't think it's gonna be that bad because of the defense changes, of course, because undead can get a big advantage in the early game now. So yeah, my opinion on the flying machines isn't too bad. They're still too strong, and flag cannon is, I don't think that's a good chance that it's available at tier 2. Maybe it is, and I'm wrong on this, but I think the buff is too strong, not as crazy as it was. So that's the human changes. Defense just sick, this nerf. Orcs, a thing that I forgot to mention, and that I totally didn't think of course walkers are in the Torrent Totem now. A Torrent Totem is available on tier 2, but it requires a War Mill. So to get walkers and Spirit Link and this spell, you need a War Mill. That delays stuff by a lot. That or needs an investment from tier 1 to tier 2 that wasn't there before, like during the tech. Same as Hunter's Hall for Night Elf, for example, or sometimes Graveyard for Undead. So this will change Orcs' behavior in the early game quite a bit, because they have these 215 gold, I think, or 200, I'm not sure, gold that they can spend on items, on a Grunt, on whatever, on a Berserker. They have to save it for a War Mill pretty early on, and that kind of screws with the entire thing. I think it would be best to get rid of the War Mill for the totem and make Torrents require the War Mill, just as Knights, for example, require a Blacksmith. I think these late walkers aren't too great for Orc. Everything will be, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this, personally. Another thing that a lot of people said is OP is reinforced defenses, and I was on your side for the longest time. But then, once again, the topic is War Mill. So you need a War Mill. This investment into reinforced defenses, which is not too much, but still a lot of lumber, and Orcs in general don't have too much lumber. This is an investment that you did not need before, or did not need to do before, and you didn't want it really, except against Undead, because otherwise you're not on tier 3. So Orcs have to rethink a lot of their building order, and when they get what. And this is pretty unpredictable, how they will do this, and when will they fit in this reinforced defenses. So, of course, there's still timing windows to push the burrows now, for Night Elf and for Human, especially right at the beginning of tier 2. Reinforced defenses does take some time, so usually the Night Elves and the Human both are in your base super early, where you can't have reinforced defenses. For later, it's super strong. For towers, it's super duper strong. It might be OP. That is why I and many other people suggest that maybe the tower upgrade is coming on tier 3. And the burrow upgrade is available at tier 2. So you split reinforced defenses in half. This is, I think, a good idea to help. Of course, make it cheaper then. So that's the thing we learned from orcs. Undead, Necropolis. It's not directly Necropolis, but the tech is more expensive now to tier 2. Because how it works in the in-game is that the Halls of the Dead, the tier 2 Necropolis, costs like 600 something gold in total. So because they reduced the cost for the Necropolis, this balances out in a more expensive tech to fill up to that 600 gold again. You know? So a tier 2 tech costs the same basically if you build it from scratch. But since you start with a Necropolis and do your tech there, it's more expensive now. I think this is just a bug and they will fix it, and this is not intentional, but it's something that we learned. Ninja changes, as Remo called it. Necromancers! A thing here that we learned is Skeletal Warrior's hit point is increased, and this does not only go for the summons of the Necromancer, but it also goes for Rod of Necromancy. So across the board, skeletons have 10 HP more, except for the Dark Ranger. So this is a buff to Undead early on as well, since you start using Rod of Necromancy immediately. And this is like 10 HP is cool to have. It's a slight buff for it's another slight buff for Undead in the early game, which is kind of okay, I think. A nerf is on the other side that because they have more HP, they get purged now from creeps, which is not that good. So that's a pretty hard nerf, I think. I don't think this is intentional as well. It has something to do with some game mechanics, and you have to lower some values or something to make that to the 1.29 state again. A thing that I underestimated is Disease Cloud from Abominations. I thought, okay, it's 2 DPS now instead of 1, but lower, like, it's still, like, I thought it's gonna be good. I think this is very strong now, especially versus Night Elf. Some people even say that Abomination is a mandatory thing now for late game. I think it makes up for a lot of damage that Abominations usually don't do. They're there to block, mostly, because of their big collision size. They don't do much damage. Abomination makes up for it, and it's a very late upgrade, which should be strong. So this feels very right to me. And yeah, better than expected, obviously. Tinka, when I did the videos that are online already on YouTube, I didn't really know what to think about the Pocket Factory change. From heavy armor to from normal armor to heavy, because the thing is, early on it's easier to kill, especially with footmen, with militia, huntress, whatever. But now you usually have him in the late stage or with cheese tactics. But in the late game, this is way easier to cancel now, because you basically always have magic damage that does more damage to heavy armor, of course. Walkers, destroyers, casters for a human. So this is a nerf. I'm very sure now that this is a nerf. So this is what I wanted to mention as well, that I had this revelation that it's certainly a nerf. And of course, heavy armor doesn't reduce anything, normal armor does, especially piercing, so yeah, definitely a nerf. I didn't think of that. Some other things is Purge. I mentioned this before. The creeps purge skeletons now. Boots of Speed. I thought this is gonna be working differently. I thought that when it's 7 PM in-game time, there's just 2 Boots of Speed available. This is not the case. It's just possible that there are 2 boots in there. So once again, we have a battle for the boots at 7 PM Warcraft time. This did not change. It's just possible to have 2 pairs of boots now in the shop, so that was something I misinterpreted from the patch notes. And Book of the Dead has a reduced skeleton amount from 4 each to 3 each, so it's not as strong as it was in the past. So, that's it. This is something we learned. 15 minutes again. What do you think about these? Oh, there's also changes to Twisted Meadows. Some trees are different and stuff. I didn't put too much work into Twisted. I gotta compare that. Maybe I do another update, but yeah, there's changes to Twisted Meadows, and that was not in the patch notes as well. Other news that we have, just real brief, Blizzard is hiring again, specifically for Warcraft 3, so that's very good news for the future. That means that we will get more upgrades in the future, not only 1.3 and then it's done. Mad Frog is streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/madqfrog. It's on Read More and Warcraft3.info. It's linked everywhere, basically. And we have the Western Open qualifier for Masters Coliseum this Saturday. That is July 14, one day after my birthday. And we're gonna cast that. You can sign up, qualifier.backtowarcraft.com. Masters Coliseum is, of course, for $28,000. You can win a chance, or you can win a flight to China and some prize money, of course. So make sure to sign up, participate, show the Chinese that you're interested in Warcraft and that our scene is still strong. This was a brief update about patch 1.30 that is on the PTR. Thanks for watching. I hope you like it. Please feel free to leave a comment how you like the changes, how you like the theory crafting that we did. And what do you think? Or what did this change your opinion about the patch? Let me know. We will be back with Warcraft action here at Back to Warcraft. Leave a subscription if you like. We're getting close to, I don't want to, 20,000. That would be cool to reach that very soon. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.